back. We got more Overwatch League content coming at you. So, day number 2. Actually made a mistake yesterday. I only predicted the matches for yesterday because there's 4 days. In the future, I'd split it into 2 parts, just like I did last year. Do predictions for the first 2 days on the first part, and the second part we get the second 2 days of the week. So just so you know, for the future, that is what will be happening. So in this video, I will be covering the next 3 days. So I'm gonna go through them a little bit faster than I usually would. I won't go as in depth. Yeah, here we go. All the rest of the 12 matches. So for today, our first match, it is Toronto Defiant and Houston Outlaws. So 2 teams generally not ranked super high, in the mid-teens. I've seen a lot for both of them. I think overall Toronto was generally placed a little bit higher than Houston. People are very low on Houston going into this year. And if you watch my power rankings, I'm a little higher than them than a lot of other people are. So maybe that's why. But I still like the Outlaws. I think they're a very solid team. They have a lot of nice pieces. They do have a problem, which a lot of people pointed out, where they don't have an overly flexible lineup, and that could hurt them. But I think that at least some of their players are going to come in a little more flexible than we'd think. It's been a long off season. I think they know that was one of their weaknesses last year. And they're playing against Toronto again. It's their first match. They're an expansion team. So will there be some nerves for Toronto? Very possibly. Looking at the maps, we got Nepal, Numbani, Volskaya, and then Route 66. So map 1, I think Toronto will win in a close one. For Numbani, that's always been a good map for Houston, so I think they'll win that. Volskaya, Houston has been playing with each other longer, so I'm going to give them the edge on that map as well. I'll say Toronto probably wins map 4. They'll get to flex on more like DPS stuff for Route 66. But I think Houston will take this one 3-2, just because they're a more experienced team. I don't think the talent gap is very big between the teams at all. Probably a little bit of an upset here, but I think Outlaws are going to pull it out. Oh yeah, and then by the way, yesterday I went 2-2. Got London and Gladiators wrong, but it got the Spark and the Excel right. Yeah, rip the Dragons, man. Still waiting for that win. Still waiting for that first win. So, to the second match. As you can see on the screen, it's the Atlanta Reign against the Florida Mayhem. So, I mean, again, if you saw my power rankings, I think you know where I'm going to go with this one. They're playing on Ilios, Hollywood, Volskaya, and then Route 66. I like Atlanta in this matchup. I think that their roster is more talented than the Mayhem. I think that they're going to be a little bit better coordinated. I think that they're suited for GOATs a little bit more. I really like their tank line over Mayhem's. So I see this one being a 3-1. I think Mayhem will pick up either, if I had to guess, I'd say either Ilios or Volskaya. I have 1 or 3. I think that they'll keep it decently close, but Atlanta will win out because, like I said, I just like to make up their roster a little bit more. I like their coaching a little bit more. And I think that even though they're an expansion team and Florida is not, they're going to be ready. And it's not like Florida has a lot of experienced players for the league anyway. So, got Atlanta over Florida in that one. To the third matchup. This is a very interesting one. Dallas versus San Fran Shock. So, I mean, we saw how these matchups went last year, but it's a whole new year. These teams are very different. They do have a lot of experienced players on the team and a couple of new players on each team. The maps they're on are Nepal, Kings Row, Horizon and Lunar Colony, and then Rialto. So I like the Fuel, but I also think the Shock are very good, and I think that the Shock are going to win this one. This is another 3-1 in my eyes. I think that 3 of the maps will be very close, very contested. Shock will win 2 of those 3 close ones. Boston Dallas will pull out one of the close ones, and then there will be another one where Shock wins pretty easily. I feel like Control might, like the first map, might go really well for the Shock, and they might pretty easily mount the floor with the fuel. But then I think Dallas has a good chance to come back on either. I would give them the best chance on Kings Row or on Rialto to kind of bring it back and get a map. But at the end of the day, I think Shock gets off to the 1-0 record, and Dallas does not win their first match. I think they will win. Last year they started out 0-4. I think they will win a match before their fourth, but not this one. It's not to be. The final matchup for today is the Chengdu Hunters versus the Guangzhou Charge. So it is the Battle of the Chinese Teams Part 2. Yesterday we had Shanghai go against Hangzhou. So now we have the other two going at it. And I really like the Charge in this one. Again, 2 expansion teams, so they'll be on pretty even ground in terms of that. But pretty much everybody, I don't think I've seen a single person with Chengdu higher than the Charge. I think the Charge's roster is just better. They have more carry potential. They've been playing together a bit longer. And the maps Busan, Numbani, Volskaya, and then Dorado. I'm kind of hesitant to call 4-0s. I think it's going to be another 3-1. Especially after seeing yesterday, where there were no 4-0s yesterday. Obviously, that could change. But with the meta being honestly kind of weird right now, with like it being GOATs, but then there's a lot of other stuff being played, and there's like triple DPS. I think that especially for like these expansion teams, the first couple of weeks are going to be like up and down. You're going to see really nice plays from them, but you're also going to see like mental lapses and miscommunications and misplays. So because of that, I think Chengdu does get a map, but the Charge get it in the end, 3-1. Moving on to tomorrow. First match is the London Spitfire taking on the Paris Eternal. So, London has played once before. Paris has not, as we know. Spitfire lost to the Fusion in their matchup yesterday. I don't think that'll happen again. This is interesting, though, because even though on paper Spitfire's lineup is a lot better than the Eternals, Spitfire did kind of struggle on the GOATs. We saw we saw Philadelphia pretty easily outplay them on GOATs, I would say. So we'll see. The maps are Ilios, Kings Row, Volskaya, and Route 66. I can't bring myself to pick against London, especially not after they lost before. Ilios, you're going to see comps. You could very potentially see comps that aren't GOATs, so I think Spitfire will have the edge there. Moving on to Kings Row, I think that'll be a good one for Paris. It's a very strong GOATs map, and they'll be able to flex onto things that are also useful for there. So I like Paris on map 2. Then I think London will take map 3, even though I could see a tie there. I could definitely see a tie on that map. But then I think Spitfire will wrap it up on Route 66. So I'll actually go on a limb, say they will tie on Volskaya, but then Spitfire will pull out map 4 for a 2-1 victory over Paris. Second matchup. I'm trying to think who hasn't played at this point. I think the last couple teams that haven't played will be coming up at this point. Yeah, by the third day, everyone should have played. That's one of the very teams who has not played yet, Washington Justice and the New York Excel. So, on paper, this is pretty much a mop for New York, but as we saw, New York is definitely not as unstoppable. At least, I mean, it's only one match, but if that's any indication, they're not going to be quite as dominant as they were last year, especially if GOATs last for a while, because they looked like good on GOATs, but just not great. I mean, Boston, with the roster of people who a lot of people barely even know, they took them, they played them really tough. New York did win, but it was 2-1, and in the last map was pretty darn close. So, New York not going to be. I don't see like a 4-0 stomp here. I do think New York will win. The Justice, again, a lot of people think one of the weaker rosters in the league. They're on Ilios, Kings Row, Horizon Lunar, and then Rialto. I'm gonna say this one will be a 3-1. I could see Justice potentially taking either Kings Row or Lunar Colony. I think those are their best chances. I think that New York will pick up maps 1 and 4 with relative ease. But yeah, I think Washington will perform a little bit better than people think. New York Excel won't play as good as people think, but they're still good enough that they should and will beat the Justice. So then you got the LA Valiant playing their first game of the season, taking on the Hangzhou Spark, who are 1-0 after that win against Shanghai. I really like the Valiant in this one. The Spark showed a lot of nice plays. They showed a lot of potential. I think that they will be around that top 10 range towards the end of the year. But I think Valiant is still a pretty top-tier team. They still have most of their roster intact. They're going to have good chemistry. The Spark did look very sloppy on some points. They have Busan, Numbani, Temple, and then Dorado. I think Valiant take Busan. Spark, I could see Spark nabbing Numbani, but then Valiant will clean it up on Anubis and Dorado for a 3-1 victory. The Spark, they barely beat the Dragons on Busan. They looked very inconsistent on that map. And then on Temple of Anubis, I really think that the coordination, just like the better comms coming out of the Valiant, will provide a huge advantage there over the Spark. And then just map 4 on the Escort map, I like the Valiant's tank lamp, especially against the Spark. Spark, we're using a couple different main tanks, but I definitely think that Valiant has an edge, at least now. Maybe towards the end of the year, Spark will be putting up an even better fight against teams like this, but I think the Valiant will take that one. And the last match of Saturday, it's the Titans versus the Dragons. So Dragons still looking for their first win, 0-1. Titans, it is their first matchup of the year. And Shanghai's going to lose again. I think Vancouver is better. Essentially, I think Vancouver is better than Hangzhou, and the Dragons lost to the Spark. So here I have to go with Vancouver. It could go either way. I'm sure the Dragons right now are practicing with Gamsu, and maybe they'll get him. I don't know if they'll get him in there by next matchup. Definitely by week 2, I'm sure we'll see him in the lineup quite a bit. But even if he's in there, the coordination isn't going to be that good. Vancouver's been playing together for a long time. Looking at Busan, Hollywood, Temple of Anubis, and Dorado, I think Vancouver will win pretty easily. I'm going to say this is a 4-0. Shanghai didn't look that great against the Spark at all. Like I said, I don't think their main tank situation is going to be any better by tomorrow. And then they barely beat the Spark on Horizon after a couple of miraculous pushes with Young Jin killing everybody on Reaper. And I don't think that'll happen again. I like the Titans to take this one in a sweep for their first match. And then moving on to the final day of week number 1. It's Sunday. Starting out with Houston Outlaws, Boston Uprising. Maps are Nepal, Hollywood, Volskaya, and Dorado. So, this is an interesting one. Again, with Boston, we saw a lot of high notes against the Excel. I think even though they lost, and they'll be bummed out about that. I think they have to overall feel good though, giving New York such a tough fight with a lot of new players in the roster. I mean, when you talk about fusions on Reinhardt because Gamsu's gone last minute, so they just bring him in. A new Lucio player, a lot of new players in general. Blase on the Brigida. So tons of new players. They pretty much have Note, Aim God, and a bunch of new guys. And then of course you got Houston, which is like the ultimate squad of they've been together for a really long time. So I think there's going to be times in this series where Boston looks really good and they look a little dominant. I think that their mistakes and sometimes their over-aggression and their inexperience with playing with each other, I think will give Houston a slight edge in the end. I'm going to say Houston in 5, but that's also scary because I think Boston has the edge in control maps in general. But like I said, because the Outlaws have better camaraderie, and probably better strats and better knowledge of themselves. I think that they have a slight edge over Boston. Next, we've got Philly Fusion and Atlanta Reign. The maps are Nepal, Kings Row, Volskaya, and then Dorado. So I really think that this will be the map that, or this will be the match that kind of shows what Reign are about. I think that they're going to kind of surprise Philly. They'll probably take a round right away on Nepal, but then I think Fusion will win Nepal in the end in a close one. And I like Fusion winning this series 3-1, but I just have a feeling that Atlanta is going to really come out motivated. Philly just took down the Spitfire, so they're going to have a bit of a target on their back, I think. And I think Atlanta's going to play real well. I don't think they're ready to beat Philly, at least not yet. I think Fusion still, better chemistry and a bit of a better roster as a whole, I think. They look super, super clean against Spitfire, so I'm definitely not picking against them here. I think they win it 3-1 and get off to that 2-0 start. But like I said, I think if Atlanta plays well and keeps it pretty close, they're going to be feeling really good about themselves moving forward. Then you got San Fran Shock versus LA Gladiators. So this is an interesting matchup. Looking at the maps, they have Ilios, Hollywood, Lunar Colony, and then Rialto. So I think this is going to be kind of a slugfest between two of the better teams. One thing that did hurt the Gladiators in their last match was Bishu, one of their off-tanks, was not able to play. Apparently he's sick. He's dealing with some kind of illness. So we'll see how that pans out and if he's available at all. Even though in that Dynasty match, I think there were a lot of things to like if you're a Gladiators fan. There were a lot of positives. It was very frustrating that they did lose because it came down to last point on Route 66, and I feel like if Gladiators pull that out on 66, I think they're going to win on Control. I mean, they absolutely destroyed Soul on Control earlier. They're very good at playing Control maps, but they just couldn't quite get it there. Dynasty just came out with more clutch plays in the end. But going off of that performance, and I haven't seen San Fran yet, I have to pick the Gladiators. I think that seeing them be able to run that 3 triple support with 2 tanks and then a Sombra, it worked very well for Gladiators. At some points, didn't work as well in others, but having that extra option is nice. Like I said, I was telling my friends this yesterday, I think the Gladiators' main weakness now is lack of a dominant Zarya player. Surefour just isn't quite it on the Zarya, which hurts me to say this because, that's my boy. But as of right now, he just got outshined by Fleta, and I think he's going to continue to get outplayed by some of these other Zaryas. Like with Shock, it will probably be Sinatra, I would assume. So that is one point where I'm like, ooh, I'm nervous about the Gladiators. But I think they'll be able to take Ilios. They'll be able to grab either map 2 or 3, probably Lunar Colony. Even though they had a really bad attack on it last time, I think they'll learn a little bit and have a better attack and then a really nice defense. So in the end, I think it's going to 5, and I think Gladiators will pull it out in 5. I know it's what I predicted for Dynasty 2, and it didn't happen, but I think that this Gladiators team, even though they lost, is still in really good shape, and they'll be able to take down a very good Shock team. And the final matchup of the week, Seoul Dynasty and Dallas Fuel. So this is going to be kind of similar to the last pick, where it's like I've seen Dynasty, I haven't seen Fuel. So that's why it's a little unfortunate that I'm making this now, but that's okay. We're going to be going with the Seoul Dynasty. They looked very, very good against the Gladiators. They looked about as strong as I was kind of expecting them to be. I put him in the power rankings. I put him at 6, but I said, if this goes well with Fissure, I could see him jumping up to the 3 area. Jae-Hong looked amazing. He was so good on the Zenyatta. He just trancing at every single fight, it seemed like. Getting those picks. They focused their heals on Fissure really, really well. I don't know how many times in the last map of the Gladiators match on Route 66 I don't know how many times they got Jaehong, or not Jaehong, they got Fissure to like 100 health on the Reinhardt, and he would just get pocketed back to full. He would get the bubbles, he'd get D Matrix, he'd get two or a lot of times three supports focusing their heals on him. They did a really good job of playing through him, and he played well in the Reinhardt, especially the last couple maps. His Hammond and Winston got countered pretty freaking hard, but I mean, they can run Reinhardt comps and just be fine. I think Dallas will put up a good fight, kind of similar to last year. They played in the first match of the season, and it was really back and forth close. Seoul won it 2-1, and I'm going to say Seoul wins this one 3-1. But again, I feel bad for Dallas. They have two very tough teams in the Shock and Dynasty in the first week. I think they'll put up good fights in both, but will fall 3-1. So those are the predictions for this week. Let me know what you think about them, where you agree, where you disagree. I will be following results and then writing down. So then next week I'll say what my record was and kind of takeaways going into week number 2. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a great couple days, and then I'll see you in the next one.